This is a love story. It is told by the employees of AG Communication Systems in Genoa, Illinois, and covers a good part of its 100-year history. AGCS is no longer in business. Its primary product, the telephone switching station, is rarely in use today with the advent of the Internet and cell phones, and AGCS closed its doors at the end of 2004. However, throughout its history, and particularly during the last 20 years of its life, AGCS exemplified the workplace values and practices that many organizations strive to achieve today. This is a story by the people who lived it. It includes highs and lows, including the ultimate end of the business. But more than that, it is a story of heart. It is a story about people who worked hard to support their families, who often had 2 generations of family members working together, who were white-collar and blue-collar, who grew up in Genoa or nearby, who came from other countries, who drove long hours to get to Genoa so that they could continue to work for this company. This is a story of people who helped each other out, who loved their jobs, and who became a family at work. In the process, they built a company with a solid reputation, quality products, and customers who were loyal until the day the factory closed. What happened at AGCS was not an accident. It is a roadmap for success in a rapidly changing world. We know that Americans make the best products in the world. The AGCS story is about where American manufacturing was at its best. But this is not a story about how they did it. Not yet. This story is by and for the people who lived it, and loved it, and wanted to share it with others. On September 11th, 2001, 19 militants associated with the Islamic extremist group Al-Qaeda hijacked 4 airliners and carried out suicide attacks against targets in the United States. 2 of the planes were flown into the towers of the World Trade Center in New York City. A 3rd plane hit the Pentagon just outside Washington, D.C., and the 4th plane crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. Often referred to as 9/11, the attacks resulted in extensive death and destruction, triggering major U.S. initiatives to combat terrorism and defining the presidency of George W. Bush. Over 3,000 people were killed during the attacks in New York City and Washington, D.C., including more than 400 police officers and firefighters. Telephone service was overwhelmed in parts of the country, especially in Washington, D.C., and in New York, where the World Trade Center housed major communications nodes. British Telecom reported a 6,000% rise in phone calls from Britain to the U.S. Email was more functional. The extreme demand on the phone system, coupled with structural damage to the telephone switches and phone lines, contributed to challenges with rescue and recovery efforts, as well as to the anxiety experienced across the country and the world by people trying to reach loved ones. AGCS, at that time a joint venture of Lucent Technologies and Verizon, had equipment in Genoa called a Colt, which is a communication system on a light truck. In other words, a highly mobile communication system that can replace damaged systems to provide service to users as needed. Within a week of 9/11, at the urging of its employees, several AGCS computer and maintenance men were on the Colt, headed for New York. To this day, it remains one of the proudest moments in AGCS history.
Because when it first started, we had the TVs going across the street there in the cafeteria. And I kind of heard that something was going on. I walk over there, and Bob Lund's in a chair like this, just looking down at the ground. And I walk over to Bob, what's going on? He's like, I can't believe anybody would ever do that. And, so I'm kind of wondering what's going on, and I walk over to TVs and I see what's going on. And yeah, he was right. How could anybody do that? Not only did, it was a loss of life for thousands of people, but they even took the lives of some of their own compatriots, some of their own people. Who does that?
It was a very hectic morning, though. I remember it very well. I remember scrambling around, hooking up the speakers and stuff throughout the factory. The factory just shut down, basically, and there were so many people gathered in the cafeteria and in the conference room, and just watching this tragedy unfold there, and it was just unbelievable. And throughout the day, that's all it was everybody, talking and mourning the loss of all these people and the tragedy that just happened, and leading into it, wondering what can we do. I personally didn't have any idea that, there was notification to say, hey, is there anybody out there with telecommunications or the equipment to come help us and stuff, but me personally,
what's going to happen out there now? It's like you have this happening, and what are they going to need? What's hurting out there? What can people do? And I remember walking down the hallway, and Mark Thirlby talks. I met Mark Thirlby in the hallway, and he kind of comes up to me and he goes, "Well, I guess I need to start getting the trailer looked at. To travel to New York." And I go, "Yeah, I guess you better do that." And that was actually before the official notification from GTE, or from whichever parent it was, to reply with telecom services in the wake of the disaster. So it was we were actually kind of rolling into it before we even had a formal request for the services.